All right, the last, at least I think it's the last thing we'll be doing for this module, the security module, is creating a baseline of our system. Like I said in the module, in the podcast where I went over the security standards, it's good to have a baseline so that when things go wrong, you can figure out if it's different than it was before or if it's the same as it was before. So there are a few things we're going to do in our baseline. You know, depending on your environment, you may want to do more, right? If you're running a web server or DNS servers, you probably want to get the web server files, the web server config file, the DNS server config file, and stuff like that. But we're not going to do that. We're going to do a few things. We're going to install a new tool that we need, and then we're going to move on from there. So one of the things we want to know is what is listening on our system. So if we do netstat-an is a command we've done a lot. It shows us active internet connections and then active Unix domain sockets. We don't really care so much about, or at least I don't really care so much right now about domain sockets. So we can do some different netstat commands. The -an shows all. N tells it numbers. If we want TCP and UDP, we can put a -t and a -u instead of all. And that shows us, oh, I don't want this. That shows us the established connections. I want listening. So TUL for listening and N. So that shows us the listening TCP and UDP ports. So we'll get that. We're going to collect all this stuff in a file. So instead of piping into more, I'm going to redirect it into a file called /temp/baseline line dash, and day's like March 25th or something. I don't know. I'm going to put it in that file. Right, so now if I look at that file, there I have that in there. So now every command I run, I'm going to append it to that file, and now when I'm done, I'll have the baseline. So then I'm going to want to use the LSOF command, which lists open files. It's not installed, so we're going to install that. Yum install LSOF. Yes, install it. So now we'll do that. We'll do LSOF, pipe that into more so we can see what it does. This shows us open files, and the interesting thing about this is it lists the process that has the file open. So this shows us what init has open, K, thread, D, whatever that is. This shows us all the things that are open. So I don't really care so much about all this stuff, but what I do care about is ports that are open. So you see here it says IPv4, IPv6, TCP. I don't have any UDP listed on this port, on this system. So we're going to run this command, and we're going to grep for TCP, I think. TCP, see what we get. So we get that. And now we're going to, I don't like numbers, so I think if I put -I, I think that I don't like names, that tells me numbers. Did that? No, that didn't do that. Maybe -n. 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 I don't know, we'll just leave -I for now. I get TCP. I don't really want established, so I'll pipe that into grep for listen. Listen. And that gets what I want. So the only thing that's listening is localhost SMTP and localhost in SSH on any IP. We'll append that to our file. Temp, baseline, right? And then we want to do the same thing, but this time we want to get UDP ports. UDP. I have no UDP, so we'll just assume that I would have some UDP, so we'll go ahead and put that in there. What else do we want to get? I want to get a list of the processes that are running, maybe. So this is gonna be problematic when we start trying to compare files, because the dates will be different and the PIDs will be different. So I'm going to run a command that will hopefully print out the owner and the command name. So I'll pipe this into cut dash F. The delimiter is already the space, so I'm going to do dash F field 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and field 8. Field 1 and 8. Alright, so I need a delimiter. 1 and 8. That didn't work right. 1 and 8. Yeah, so I'm going to use awk instead, because awk lets me print the last field. That's not going to work either. Awk. Print $1, $8. Yeah, there we go. So that got most of what I wanted. Let's see, look at that again. $8. Alright, that didn't get everything, so I'm going to put $8 and $9, because some of these commands, we look at this again. I got $8 was this first one, but some of them have more than one. So I'm going to print $8 and $9. If there's nothing there, it will just print nothing, right? So $9. So that's good. So that's good. That's a list of processes that are running. Obviously, right, this might show up as not being there, and some of this other stuff might show up as not being there when we get ready. Like this PS command, the awk command, those may not show up when we do our evaluation of the baseline. But we can worry about that later. So that's a listing of processes I'm worried about. I'm also want to know if any new users have been added. So I'm going to get the password file, right? That's my password file, and I'm going to redirect that into the file. Baseline. We made some modifications to our SSHD config. Right, we changed some stuff in there, so we might want to know if anything got changed. I don't really care about the commented lines, so I'm going to do a grep -v for any line that starts with a comment, and hopefully that'll get rid of the comments. I also want to get rid of blank lines. Grep -v, any line that is a $sign at the beginning and the end with nothing else in between it is a blank line, right? So then that gives me a list of anything in my SSHD config that is not commented out. So I'm going to redirect that into the baseline. I probably want to get my IP tables firewall rules. IP tables config. So yeah, I want that in my baseline. And I also want to get whatever my running firewall is. Service IP tables -L -N, right? We also did a -V. I don't want the -V. Why don't I want the -V? Well, I don't want to have to worry about these number of packets and number of bytes not matching, right? So I'm going to go with just L and N, and that way it should be the same every time. So I'm going to put that in my baseline. So, yeah, temp baseline. So there we go. So if we look at my baseline file, I have a bunch of stuff in there. Not really useful. I mean, it very useful, but not really very user friendly. So now, let's say we have our baseline file, and then, well, I'm gonna do something else. I'm kind of lazy. I don't know if you guys knew that about me or not, but I'm going to put this stuff in a script. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my history, pipe that into grep for baseline, and that's going to show me the commands that went into my baseline file. I'm going to copy all these. Edit, copy. I'm going to go to roots home directory. I'm going to create a script, baseline.sh. I'll put that stuff in there. I'm going to, I don't need that line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7x gets rid of it. Dot, 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 dot. So, I essentially just created a shell script. Almost. Let me create a file name equals baseline, and then slash temp slash baseline, and I'm going to change this to $file name. Oh, and that was all caps, huh? If you're super awesome, you could use the substituting functionality of VI to substitute this instead of just doing it this way. But I can never remember the syntax for that, and since there's only a few lines, it's not worth my energy to try to figure it out right now. So, and then I don't need the more. So that runs the commands and puts them in the file called baseline. So now if I run this, chmod u plus x baseline. Now if I run this and look in slash temp, now I have my baseline file I created and the one I just created. So now in theory, if something were different, if I compared those two files, I would get different output. So we can use the diff command to compare two files. So I'm going to compare baseline and baseline with the date and look and say, oh hey, the only difference is there's a bin bash in one of those files and not in the other. So let's go ahead and turn off our firewall for fun. Service IP table stop. So now the firewall's off. So now let's go back and run our baseline again. And now let's compare the two files to our original. And now, oh hey, look what, it's not a very, well, that's showing all kinds of stuff. Let's try that again and see what it does. Yeah, so it's diff's not being very friendly, user friendly right now. Diff tries to compare on a line by line basis, and once things don't match up right, it gets a little unuser friendly. So let's try this again with it on and see how it works. Oh, yeah, I know what the problem is. Problem is I'm being stupid, right? Anybody else figure out what the problem is? If we go back into my file, cd/root, if we look at my file, it's appending every time. So it was not getting rid of the old file, it was overriding it. So there's two ways we could fix that. One is to make this a single greater than, and now things should work as expected. So let's go ahead and turn the firewall off again. Service IP table stop. So now if I run my baseline script, and now if I compare them, and now I get all that shows up is the part where the IP tables rules were not being shown and the bin bash again. So hey, you know what? That tells us, hey, check that out. Something's not right, and you can tell it's something to do with IP tables. So that's the whole purpose of the baseline script. The purpose of the baseline script is to collect the known good information so that later on when you're trying to figure out what changed, you have the opportunity to change that. Our security standard says you should send the baseline to the security officer. That was to simulate storing it off system. If you have your baseline on this system and an attacker finds it, they can delete your baseline or they can override it. They can make your changes, make their changes, and then run your baseline script to update the baseline. So you want to have your baseline stored off the system somewhere. Another thing to be concerned with, if someone compromises your system, it's entirely possible that they could Trojan some of your commands to hide information from you. So a common thing you might see is when we ran the netstack command, it showed us which ports were listening. If you were a hacker that wrote a hacker toolkit to put a malicious server on a machine, you would probably try to Trojan the netstack command as well so that it would not show your malicious program when someone ran the netstack command. So those are things to be concerned with. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to, yeah, we'll do that. The date command shows you the date. There's some format specifiers like, let me see if I can remember how to do this. Percent plus, crap. I guess I'll read the man page. Plus format. So date plus percent %M percent %D percent %Y. I think that tells it. That's not what I wanted. No, only percent, not. All right, so that puts the date in that kind of format, and if you wanted the time, you can do percent hour, percent minute, percent second, or something like that. Or that's not minute, that's month. I'll format a percent hour. Yeah, whatever. We'll just go with this for now. So that tells us the date. So we can go into our script and we can do something like date equals, and remember we put inside backticks a command, date plus percent month, percent day, percent year. And then down here we can put baseline percent dollar date. And now that's not going to work because that was uppercase and my date was lowercase or whatever. So now if we run the baseline script, we get an error because I didn't close my thing with another backtick. So now if we run the baseline script, we get the date on there as well with an underscore. I want to put the time too. So let's go read the man page for date. See, so percent capital H, percent capital M should do it. That's not what I wanted. Percent capital H, percent capital M. Percent H, percent M. So now we get the command with the minute, hour, and the minute, so we can run it more than once. I don't like that, so I'm going to do something else. So I'm going to put some spacing between it because I think that's more readable. Oh. So that didn't work. Sometimes when you have things all jammed up, you have to put the variables with curly brackets around them to kind of protect them and specify what the variables are. So now let's see what I have. There we go. So now I have the file the way I like it. Baseline, the date, and the time. So that's that. Well, I'm gonna mess with my script some more. Go creating system baseline. Baseline written $2 file name. So let's see. All right, there we go. Creating system baseline written to temp baseline, whatever. So now if we go over there, we have that file. So there we go. That's how you can create the system baseline and script the process, and how you can use the baseline to determine what has went wrong with the system. So the baseline, per our security standard, needs to be created and sent to the security manager, which is me. There'll probably be some details in the exercises file that tells you where to put your baseline file. And then every module from here on out, once we get done adding new services in and stuff, we might update our baseline script, and we will update our baseline.